couple of weeks ago, I had the honour of meeting a powerful woman whose families have occupied this very land we stand on for a very long time. She is Yuggera Turrbal, original sovereign of Meeanjin, Brisbane, which means she can give us a proper welcome to country for the first time at the TPR rally this year. Her family are descendants of Kowali. He was known as King Sandy, King of Brisbane, who survived under the household of Tom Petrie, who was an early explorer pioneer of Brisbane. She is Queensland head of Original Sovereign Tribal Federation, which is OSTF for short, an internationally recognised body made up of many tribal groups advocating and questioning the sovereignty of Australian governments and the Queen of England for many years. She has been involved in activism for the majority of her life, and she is here with us today. Brothers and sisters, please welcome Auntie Karanguri to the stage. You can jump on there if you want. Get in the box there.
I don't know. Hi, my name's Karen. Thank you for the introduction. I just wanted to let everyone know, we advocate our sovereign rights here in these lands, originally known as Meeanjin, but now called Brisbane. We are of the Yuggera Turrbal people. We've got a number of ancestors that resided here for many years, and we survived due to the fact that it was the wider public, the English that come down here that stood with us. But even before the English came and stood with us in the 1820s, when they first come up here to start the first prison colony out here at St Helena's, we had a lot of the Irish come up here. They were removed from Botany Bay, and that's what you hear when I do the welcomes. I acknowledge my ancestors, but I like to share a bit of the history of these lands that have been robbed from us by the aristocracy that enslaves us today. St Helena's was started by Patrick Logan. He was the first white man to come into these lands here. He started a prison colony, and they moved the Irish up here because they were too hard to control down at Botany Bay. So they ran away escaped St Helena's, and they actually lived with our people. We had the resistance going on, led by our grannies, Multugger and Moppy. They were head of the Yuggera warriors, Dundalli and many of the other veteran fighters. They stood up and fought back. There was many wars here, and they fought back with burning spears and all the tools of the trade. But they looked after these convicts. That our people actually took Patrick Logan out after he came looking for them, and we've got those stories all recorded. For if you do your research, you'll find that those stories happen, and that was all at the Battle of One Tree, they call it, but it was an ongoing war that went on for about 30 years, and then they established Deebing Creek, where 9,000 of our people were processed through. And as many of you might know, we've had to face the battle of many diseases coming into our lands, and COVID is nothing new to us. The diseases that they hit us with and that we had to survive, we did survive. It took out thousands of people and the massacres and stuff, but we had our allies that stood with us, and we stood united, just like we're doing here today. We're all uniting to stand up against this system. This battle isn't new to any one of us. In fact, if you look at your own origins, you'll find that in those lands, they had the same things happen to them, the original sovereigns of those lands, especially Ireland and Scotland and many of the new countries. We're the seventh continent invaded, so they was new and improved when they come here. So I applaud you all standing up. It only takes one to stand against the system. Like I said, I advocate strongly for sovereignty, sovereign rights, and our allodial title to these lands. We never sold, we never treated, we never even gave the land away. We had taken an assumed governance structure took over. The first slaves of these lands were actually the Irish. They were white fellas. Or some say the black fellas of Ireland or black fellas of Europe. So they were the first slaves that were in these lands down here. And then it just rolled out. The enslavement system never stopped. It didn't stop. It's HMS Australia. If people don't remember what HMS, that was the names of the prisons. Prisons never worked. The institutions run by the patriarchy destroyed the world, the Western worlds. I want to encourage all the sisters too here today that are standing up, the matriarchs and their families, raise children, stand by their husbands, their brothers, their grandfathers, the working classes and all the women. And you do this. I just want to encourage you and give you a shout out to all the women here today too. We got to remember them, brothers. We love our brothers, we love them all, but the sisters, they do a phenomenal job. And if you know, it's not just the women of all over the world have stood up, and they come from the heart. They stand with their hearts on their sleeves. We got women in our families that have stood up and had to stand against this system. My mother, who I love dearly, she was born in a leper colony. They took our families, and I got two sides, my mother and father's side, of 4 generations on each side where they were incarcerated under the missions run by the church, another patriarchal institution. But we're now, today, having to stand up and acknowledge all of those, all of the past to remedy the future. That's why we look to the past. It's only to refer and remedy the future so it doesn't happen again. Like my grandchildren are standing up here, holding the sign, Save Our Children. They're our future. They're our future. We don't want this going on anymore. That's why I do advocate sovereignty. We've had Rod Culloden go over to England recently into a court matter with the English to prove that there is no Queen of Australia. They acquiesced in silence, and we're addressing this. We've got no voice in their parliaments, and the people that sit in those parliaments, we got to question the democracy system. And what we're at risk of today is this assumed controlling powers that are coming for our families and our loved ones. We know there is any evidence of any COVID pandemic. That's why we're here today. We know that they've set out a lot of propaganda, and that's what they did to us. They send out a lot of propaganda. The media is not for the people. We have to be the media. We have to be our own governance. We have to take back our power. It literally is power to the people. We have to literally be our own government.
He just got it.
I'm back on. Oh. And that is the beauty of being in this, in amongst, I don't even know what, just free people that are seeking freedom. We don't want to be enslaved no more. One of the major issues too that we always advocate under sovereignty is that is our culture, and our law never ceded either. No man owns these lands. No man owns nature. No man owns the rain, the trees, the grass. They never created it. And this is what we're saying. No man owns the lands. How dare you put a price tag on our mother? This is what we need to address and decolonise from. No man owns the lands. And if you've had criminal governments assuming control and power, force controlling the people into subjection, it's time to stand up. It's time to denounce. It's time to proclaim. In saying all that, I think I should be a bit longer, but I just want to acknowledge all my grannies here. I acknowledge all my grandparents, great-grandparents, Mopi, Multagra, Nawin Kawali, Maminda Dinaba, Yuggera people, Turrbal people, Gurrumpal people, Kabi Kabi peoples, Waka Waka Mananjalis, Nunakal, all our Boogermen too, Bindul and Kalkadoons, all our families, all the tribal groups that were hidden from today, force controlled into subjection. And we're standing up today to say no longer are we going to be bound to a system that mass murders people at the stroke of a pen. Thank you. Yahweh!
Good job.